My name is Evan, and until last year, I wouldn't have called myself the outdoorsy type. I'd lived in cities my whole life, Portland, then Denver, always surrounded by people, traffic, the constant buzz of civilization. But when I turned 25 and finally got my own place, something inside me changed. I wanted silence. Not the kind where you still hear your neighbor's TV through the walls, but real silence. Forest silence. A place where there's no phone service, no background hum, just you and the trees. So I made a plan. I researched nearby hiking trails and found one with incredible reviews. 8 hours round trip, moderate difficulty, and a breathtaking overlook at the end. A place where you could see an entire valley open up beneath you. I thought it'd be the perfect way to push myself, clear my mind, and do something I'd never done before. Something I could be proud of. I picked a Monday to avoid crowds, packed way too much food and water. No overnight gear, just the essentials for a long day hike. And stupidly, no flashlight. The morning started fine. The trail was narrower than I expected, barely wide enough to walk on without brushing against the edges, but still well-defined. It wound uphill, hugging cliff sides and weaving between thick groves of pine. There was no one else around, just birdsong and the crunch of gravel beneath my boots. For the first few hours, I felt amazing. I was in shape, motivated, enjoying the solitude. I took photos, ate lunch halfway up. The trail, although a bit overgrown in places, was easy to follow. I kept checking my watch, tracking time. At around hour 6, though, I started getting uneasy. I still hadn't reached the overlook. I hadn't seen any signs or markers for over an hour. And something about the air, about the quiet, started to shift. There's a kind of silence that feels peaceful. Then there's the kind that feels wrong. That's what this was. I stopped and checked my GPS, but there was no signal. I pulled out the trail map I'd printed, but the details were vague. I debated turning around. I didn't want to miss the view, but I also didn't want to get caught out here after dark. Eventually, I decided to head back. That's when things started to unravel. About 30 minutes into the hike back down, I noticed something strange. A line of footprints crossed the trail, moving perpendicular to it. Not mine, not animal, human. Deep enough to be fresh. I didn't remember seeing them on the way up, but maybe I missed them? Maybe they were old. Still, they unsettled me. I pressed on. An hour later, something else happened. The trail widened. At first, I didn't notice it, but soon I was walking on a path almost double the width of the one I'd started on. And I knew that wasn't right. The narrowness of the trail was one of the first things I noticed that morning. Somewhere, somehow, I'd taken a wrong turn. I froze, looked around, backtracked a little, tried to remember where I'd gone wrong. But every tree looked the same. Every fork in the trail, if I had even passed one, blurred together. The sun was beginning to set. That's when panic crept in. Not the screaming kind of panic, the quiet kind. The kind that presses against your chest and whispers, "You're not getting out of here." I turned back again, trying to retrace my steps. Then I saw more footprints. Not the same ones as before. These were newer. And they weren't there 10 minutes ago. They followed the trail for a bit, then veered off into the woods. I stopped, turned my phone light on. It was barely enough to see. I stood in place, trying to calm myself, but the fear was crawling up my spine now, relentless. I wasn't alone. Somewhere out there, someone was walking, quietly, watching. I pressed forward, fast walking, refusing to run. My heartbeat was deafening. The only sounds were gravel underfoot and the occasional rustle of wind. Then I heard it. Another set of footsteps. Not mine. Ahead of me, not behind. They stopped when I stopped. I squinted into the dark, holding my phone light high, and that's when I saw it. Just off the trail, behind a wide tree trunk, barely visible in the dim light, was the faintest shimmer of breath. A cloud of condensation in the cold night air. Someone was standing there, 10 feet away, watching. I couldn't see their face, just the shape of a body, motionless, hiding behind the tree. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing, not a word. I backed away slowly. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to turn my back. I didn't want to give them a reason to move. After maybe 20 steps, I turned and began walking as fast as I could. I don't know how long I walked, maybe hours. Every snapping twig behind me sent my nerves into overdrive. But eventually, by some miracle, I stumbled back onto the original path. I recognized a broken tree stump I'd passed on the way up, then a large moss-covered boulder, and finally, the trailhead. I don't think I've ever moved faster than I did crossing that parking lot and unlocking my car. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before driving, just breathing. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not right away. But 3 weeks later, I turned on the news. 2 hikers had been found dead in the same forest I'd hiked. The reporter didn't give exact coordinates, just that it was near a popular trail. They didn't say how the hikers died. They didn't say who found them. And they didn't catch anyone. But I'm almost certain that at one point, I was standing just 10 feet away from whoever was responsible. Close enough to see their breath. Close enough that if I had stepped closer, I might have been number 3. My name's Adam, and this happened during a solo road trip across the country. Something I never would have done if I hadn't bombed that job interview in Arizona. The interview ended badly. Let's just say I wasn't their top choice, and I knew it the second I walked out. Instead of flying home to Oregon the same day, I decided to clear my head. Make the most of it. See some nature. I rented a car and gave myself 2 days to drive back. Just me, my thoughts, and a badly curated playlist of sad indie songs and upbeat classics that didn't match my mood at all. It was supposed to be peaceful, but what happened that night still doesn't make sense. It was just past 1 a.m., and I was somewhere in Northern California. Or at least I thought I was. Thick rain hammered the windshield, and I was driving down a narrow 1-lane road, cutting through dense forest that stretched for hours in every direction. Not a town in sight, just trees, shadows, and the occasional deer darting across the road. I had my phone mounted on the dash, Apple Maps tracking every turn. But around the same time the rain started getting heavier, something strange happened. The screen froze. It said I was still 62 miles from my next turn, but the marker showing my position wasn't moving. The little blue dot had stopped tracking me altogether. Great, I muttered, trying to zoom in and out. Nothing. I even restarted the app. Still frozen. At first, I figured it was just poor reception. I'd seen no cell towers for miles. But then I noticed something worse. The directions no longer showed a road name. Just turn right in 62 miles. That's it. No street, no highway number, no hint of where I was going. I was basically driving blind. Still, I didn't panic. I told myself I'd recognize the street name once I saw the sign. I had a vague memory of it, something like Highland Ridge or Hollow Creek. It was one of those names that doesn't stick until you see it again. So I kept going. 30 minutes passed, then another 45. Still in the forest, still raining. Then I saw it. An intersection coming up. The first one in what felt like forever. Parked just off the shoulder was a pickup truck, an older model Ford, dark green, with rust spots near the back wheel. The driver's window was fogged up. I assumed they were having car trouble, or maybe doing the same thing I was, trying to get a signal. As I approached the intersection, I glanced at the street sign and felt a strange chill. It looked familiar. I couldn't remember exactly why, but something told me this was the turn I'd been waiting for. A little mental ping from the back of my brain, so I turned. The moment I did, the rain seemed to get heavier, the forest darker. I was gripping the wheel harder now, not out of fear, but from tension, like I was trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice. But an hour passed, then another half hour. Still in the woods, still no signs of civilization. No gas stations, no lights, just endless forest that all looked the same. That's when I saw it, a glowing billboard, just barely lit through the fog and rain. Mountain Shadow Inn. Vacancy. 24 HRS. There it was, a motel. I pulled into the lot, relieved to finally get off the road and take a break. But as soon as my headlights swept over the building, something felt off. The parking lot was empty, not a single car in sight. The building looked old, faded, and somehow untouched by time. The sign above the front door flickered like it hadn't been serviced in years. I parked and sat for a minute, still in the car, trying to get my phone to work. Nothing. Still frozen. Then headlights appeared behind me. The same pickup truck I saw at the intersection pulled into the lot. It parked a few spots down. I couldn't see the driver clearly through the rain, but something about that truck made my skin crawl, like it shouldn't have followed me here. I sat in the car for maybe 15 minutes, debating whether to go inside. My gut was telling me something wasn't right, but my body was tired and I needed to regroup. Then came the knock. Tap, tap, tap. I jumped. A man stood outside my window, drenched, rain pouring down his face and soaked into his long brown beard. He wore a heavy flannel jacket and jeans, both soaked through. "Hey, can you help me?" he yelled through the storm. I cracked the window. Rain splashed my arm. "What's up?" I asked. He leaned in slightly, just enough to make me nervous. "I'm looking for a place," he said. Then, oddly specific. "You know where 49 East Colburn Street is?" I blinked. No, I'm just as lost as you are." His face didn't change. He just stood there for a second, then smiled. "All right," he said. "You have a nice night." Then he turned and walked back to his truck. That smile wasn't kind. It was the kind of smile people give when they know something you don't. I waited. I watched. After a minute, I got out and jogged through the rain into the motel lobby. Empty. Dark. The lights were dim and the front desk was unmanned. I rang the bell. No response. I leaned over the counter to peek in back. Nothing. Not even movement. Then the door behind me opened. It was him. The man from the truck. Soaked to the bone, his hair dripping onto the floor, his eyes locked on mine. Cold. Intentional. He stepped forward. One hand was shoved deep into his jacket pocket. I didn't wait. I darted past him, squeezing through the doorway and out into the storm. He didn't try to stop me, but he followed. Fast. I could hear his footsteps splashing behind me. I yanked open my car door and slammed it shut. That's when I heard it. Click. My car auto-locked. He reached for the handle and pulled. Hard. Then again. Then violently. His face twisted into rage. His teeth bared. He began yanking so hard the entire car rocked. I fumbled with the ignition, threw the car into reverse, and nearly ran him over as I sped out of the lot. I didn't stop driving until I hit the interstate 30 minutes later. The first town I reached had cell service. I pulled over, finally able to call someone. I told the police what happened, but it only got stranger. That motel, the one with the working neon sign and lit billboard, it had closed down 2 months earlier. The building had been vacant, the power cut off, and yet the lights were on. To this day, no one's been able to explain why. I don't know what that man wanted, whether he was squatting there, or worse, if he knew that motel was abandoned and used it for something else. All I know is that if I'd walked a little slower, if my car hadn't auto-locked, I might still be parked outside that motel, or maybe worse, inside it. I'd always wanted to visit Washington. Not the political machine in DC, but the rugged forested Washington state. The one with towering evergreens, endless fog, and hiking trails that vanish into the unknown. So when I finally booked a week off work and flew across the country, I promised myself I wouldn't just stay in Seattle sipping espresso and watching indie bands. I was going to do it right. I was going to camp completely alone for one night in the woods. My name's Tyler. I'd been camping before, but never solo. That night in the Washington forest was my first time being completely alone in nature. And it nearly killed me. I rented gear from a local outdoor shop. Tent, sleeping bag, stove, even bear spray. The cashier, a guy named Drew, looked at me and asked, "You going alone?" I nodded. He smiled but didn't say much after that. I figured he thought I was either brave or stupid. The campsite I picked was about 3 hours out of the city. A small trail off a dirt road with primitive plots marked by tree stumps and old fire rings. There were no nearby attractions, just endless forest and the sound of birds. That's what I wanted. Peace. Solitude. Something that felt real. I set up my tent off to the side, tucked next to a thick pine tree, the kind with roots that look like they're gripping the earth. I got a fire going by sunset, pulled out the Ziploc bag I'd packed with s'mores ingredients, and let the heat of the flames melt away the digital noise of modern life. It was almost perfect. Until he showed up. I didn't hear him approach. 1 second, I was alone by the fire, roasting a marshmallow. The next, a man sat across from me. No sound. No footsteps. He just appeared. I jolted back a little, startled. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "You camping around here too?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me, expressionless, like someone trying to remember your face but unsure if you're real. His clothes were worn and dirty, like he'd been out here a while. A torn flannel, damp boots, messy dark hair clinging to his forehead. I glanced around, expecting others. Nothing. No movement. Just us and the fire. After what felt like a full minute, the man stood up and walked away, silent as before. Not a word, not even a nod. My heartbeat didn't slow for a long time. Something about him was wrong. Not dangerous exactly, just wrong, like he wasn't really there for conversation. I stayed by the fire a bit longer, nerves on edge, scanning every shadow. Eventually, I put it out and zipped myself into the tent, clutching my flashlight like a weapon. Sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, it didn't last. I woke to the sound of fire, not just the crackle of wood, but the flickering orange glow outside my tent. I froze. I had put the fire out. I was sure of it. I unzipped the tent slowly, heart pounding, and peeked outside. The campfire was blazing, but that wasn't the worst part. 4 men were sitting around it. One of them was the same man from before, the silent stranger in the torn flannel. They weren't talking. They weren't eating or drinking, just sitting in eerie silence, all of them staring directly at my tent, at me. I stepped out slowly. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. None of them replied. One of the men, tall and bald with sunken eyes, muttered something in a foreign language. Then 2 of them stood and walked toward me, fast. Before I could move, they grabbed me. One shoved me against a tree while the other patted me down. They took my phone, my wallet, even my keys. They didn't ask. They didn't threaten. Just took. I didn't resist. These men were huge. There was no way I was going to fight 4 people in the middle of the forest with no one around for miles. Then they dragged me away. We walked for at least 20 minutes deeper into the forest. No trail, no light, just their boots crunching leaves and my breath coming out in shallow, terrified gasps. I remember thinking, this is it. They're going to kill me. But then they stopped. One of them, a man with a thick beard and glassy eyes, shoved me hard. I fell to the ground, hit my head on a rock, and blacked out for a second. When I came to, they were gone. No campfire, no voices, just forest. Black, infinite forest. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like rubber. My head was spinning. The only thing keeping me moving was pure panic. I picked a direction, any direction, and started walking. Or limping, really. Everything blurred together, trees, branches, the sound of my own heartbeat. I couldn't tell if I was heading toward civilization or deeper into the wild. I prayed for the former. Then I saw it. Light. A flashlight, bobbing in the darkness. I screamed. "Help!" The light froze, then turned toward me. A figure stood holding it. 3 others stepped out behind him. Not rescuers. Them. I ran, didn't think, just ran. My lungs burned, branches tore at my skin, my feet slipped on wet moss. But I didn't stop. And thank God they didn't chase. I kept moving in the direction they'd come from, hoping it would lead me to a road. Any road. Hours passed. The sky started to lighten, and I finally saw it. Pavement, the interstate. I stumbled out, shirt torn, bleeding from the head. A passing car saw me and pulled over. The driver, a woman named Elena, called the police and gave me water. I must have looked like a ghost. The police were kind, professional. They took my statement and filed a report. I described the men, told them about the fire, the robbery, everything. They found my car still at the campsite, but most of the gear was gone. I still had to pay for the lost rentals, but honestly, that was the least of my concerns. The cops said there'd been other strange reports in those woods. A few hikers gone missing. One case of a man found dazed in the forest, barefoot, unable to speak. They never caught those men, and maybe it's better that way, because if I hadn't woken up, or if I hadn't run when I did, I might not be here telling this story. I still don't know why they didn't kill me. Maybe they just wanted to scare me. Maybe I wasn't worth the effort. Or maybe I was just lucky. But here's the part that messes me up the most. If I hadn't seen them a second time, if they hadn't accidentally helped point me toward the road, I might have wandered in circles until morning. Or not at all. It's terrifying to realize your survival came down to that. A second chance. A wrong turn that turned out to be right.